Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever it is you may be joining us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone who has joined in early. We're seeing your comments. Hello, Janet. Hello, Damilola. Hello, Shenge. I don't want to murder your name, but I hope that's the pronunciation. Thank you so much for joining. We have about a minute to officially kick off. It would be nice to know where we're joining in from. So my name is Adedoyin Jaisimi. I'm coming in from Lagos, Nigeria. Just to also double check that you can hear me well. So please put a message in the chat if you're able to hear me so that I know that I'm not speaking to myself. So you can let me know in the chat. Can you hear me well? Fantastic. Thank you, Damilola. So I'm guessing you can hear me. Hi, Nancy. Good afternoon. All right. It's right on the hour. It's 12 o'clock. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please, we need more introductions. I see we have a number of people already online as well. Hi, Dami. Dami, I know you're definitely from Nigeria, but you may be tuning in from somewhere else. Welcome. Okay, so we're going to start off this conversation. Thank you for the feedback, Dami. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dinchi. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Abiodu. Hi. Thank you, Amina. Okay, fantastic. I think we can all hear. All right, so we're going to start this conversation, and it's a conversation that I really, really love because it's about moments we failed in our comms career, right? We just hear people talking about the successes, talking about their wins, and then you're wondering, yeah, what about the moments you didn't do so well? What about the moments of, the moments where you failed, basically? So we're going to be having that discussion. And joining me today, she's currently in Nairobi, Kenya, but she's a global communications professional, a distinguished Kenyan professional, and she's currently serving as the Global Director of Communications at Forest Stewardship Council. So we're going to be hearing from her shortly. But I promise those of you that have been following on Substack, those of you that have been following my Substack posts, I started a story and I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. But let me tell you how this is going to go. So I'm going to have a conversation with Rose. We're going to talk about those moments, share with you some lessons. Please feel free in the comment section. Please write your comments, thoughts, reflections, and all of that. And then we're going to be bringing a special guest to also just share her perspective on failure in her own comms career. And then once we do that, we'll take your questions and hopefully to wrap up within the next 1 hour. So are you ready? Do you have your popcorn? Do you have well, you can't have popcorn now. It's a work day. So maybe your tea, your coffee, your biscuits, your sandwiches, please have it ready. So for those of you who don't know the story, so I'm going to tell the story again. So this was in 2018. I was in the middle of my career. And I was just in that time where I just wanted to make money. I don't know, can anybody relate? Where you're looking at the bills, you're just like, please, I need to make money. I need to sort out these bills. We have something called soft life in Nigeria. I just wanted to live the soft life. And then this opportunity came up with a luxury magazine. And honestly, what's attracted me to that role was the luxury behind the magazine. I wasn't really like passionate about it, but I was like, managing editor, this is a real luxury brand, not those brands that say they're affordable luxury. And I got into the interview and they were like, oh, we have someone for this role, but we want to offer you the second role to be the head of digital at our PR agency. And I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. And then looking at the agency, they have a lot of global clients. Again, I was thinking about the money, the money, the money, the money. And then I started the role. Now, at this point in my career, I was very heavy on content, very heavy on social media in terms of my competence, because that was what I was doing a lot of. So PR, I wasn't even doing strategic comms. I was doing more of the tactical things, but I was really, really good in the writing aspect, the content creation aspect, social media. So when they said digital, in my mind, I was like, and also because I was handling social media, I had already dabbled into Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and the time, Meta, what's it called? Meta ad suites. I can't remember what it was. Facebook ad suite, because it wasn't Meta at the time. I knew how to just like do the ads, do the segmenting and the targets. So I was like, I didn't know you can do this now, digital, not knowing that there is a whole world of digital marketing that I had no clue about. And I started this job. The first brief that we got was okay. It was more content, more social media, did a few ads here and there. And then the next brief came with an international organization. I was like, yes, this is what I want. This is my moment. This is my win. And then we started, and then we had to run YouTube ads. So I was like, okay. And what I'd been doing in my career at that time, there was something I didn't know, because I know how to research. I know how to get information. So I would just go look for the information, maybe call a friend or two, just say, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I figure it out. So I thought, okay, I'll figure it out. That's how I started with LinkedIn. YouTube ads. Didn't realize that YouTube ads are actually very, very complex. And if you're not careful, you can incur a debt. And that was how I started this campaign. I remember during one of the project meetings, the person on the client side was then asking for a particular metric. I didn't know that YouTube, the watched view, is not about the entire thing. So it has for like 3 seconds. It's segmented into different sections. I had no idea. And yeah, that campaign fell really flat. And what even made it really bad was we incurred a debt. And guess what happened to the debt? Adedoyin had to pay from it. So the money that I thought I was going to make, I ended up spending it or refunding the company for the money lost, almost $1,000. It was so painful, but it was an experience that really taught me about, how sometimes when people say that if you don't know how to do something, just say yes and then you figure it out. It's not the best advice in all scenarios. I learned from that to really understand my competency area, to learn where I'm really, really skilled at and know the boundaries of that competency. I'm not a digital marketing expert. I should not have dabbled into digital marketing, but that was what and it was a real life failure. It was a big deal. It was a big campaign. Thankfully, things were able to be salvaged at the end of the day, but it cost money and it cost me my professional reputation. So that was very, very costly. So that's my own story. And I'm going to open up now for Rose. Rose, I'm sure you've had your own fair share of stories, things that didn't go so well, experiences that were not so great. But can you just share, an experience that you felt like, wow, this wasn't a great experience, but it was a good learning moment for you as well?
Thank you, Adedoyin. And I can completely relate with your story. The moments where you walk away from it thinking that your entire reputation is in tatters and you will never recover from this. And our life story tells us a very different thing. That's in the past. We've grown from it. But I like to dwell on my failures and the challenges of the things that I've passed through, mostly not because of the lessons, but because they're the silent moments that no one ever talks about. Now, I have a gift, Adedoyin. I have a gift of imagination. I am telling you, I can dream while I am fully awake. I can dream like in a movie, like a complete film, right? And that's one of my superpowers. I have a fantastic, fertile imagination. And over the years, even from my childhood, it has kind of like started blurring between what is really happening, what are you actually doing, what time is it, are you dreaming, what time are you in your real life? And this is one story where I used my superpower and it brought chaos, right? So very early on in my career, I had just finished, just jumped out from journalism and into my PR agency job. It was a very first time. I had been trying for ages to get into the PR agency business, and I finally got my foot in. And there I was, head of editorial, writing, and getting the journalists to come for the event. And my job was trying to get the journalists to always show up for the event and also cover so we can get tons and tons of share of voice and share of ink. So this one client was a cement firm. Now, selling cement is not easy. What they had done is that they were setting up what they call a center for excellence. I did not know what that meant, right? All I knew is that I have to get the journalists to come there and I had to get them to cover it. So I sell it and I really milk out all the selling using my beautiful imagination, and I get all the media to come over. And then one editor calls my boss and says, that's not exactly what Rose sold us about that event, right? That's not exactly. I didn't get a story. I came for the event, but I didn't get a story that Rose says was going to happen. My expectations based on what we saw, that was completely different. Well, the long and short of it, my boss intervened and did a lot of management with the journalists and the media. We got little bit of coverage, not so groundbreaking. So a majority of the journalists who came did not cover it. But then what happens there as a result, like just like you, I thought to myself, the media will never show up again if I call them for an event. My boss sat me down and told me, what did you say? Girl, what did you say? I was like, so a center of excellence in my imagination is that they were going to build this very big building and they were going to create jobs. And these young people from the university were actually going to be employed to make this cement, and it's going to be groundbreaking cement that has never been seen before. And that's what I sold. I said, well, apparently the relationship was that they were going to partner with the university so that they can be able to bring the engineers, people studying engineering at the university, to the cement factory to see that as an opportunity for jobs rather than just being a pure mainstream engineer. I was like, well, that's boring. But of course, yeah, I didn't say that exactly. But I was like, oh, so that's it. Okay, how's I going to sell that? So my boss brought me down. I was really sad. I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. I didn't want to show up for the journalist cocktail at the end of the day that we had organized because I was like, I cannot show my face to these people. I used to work with these guys, and here I am messing up on my first job, my very first task when I get into the agency. I could not live that down, and it really haunted me for years and years and years. But how did I come out of it? I think it's just a combination of forgetting and a combination of just getting into the work mode and doing other jobs and being very careful in places here and there and rebuilding my reputation and my friendship, especially with the journalists as well. Just moving one day at a time until another mistake popped up, and that one didn't look as bad as the next one, you know? So it didn't cost us money, but it cost us media coverage that would have been potential because the client was like, I saw all these guys there. Why am I not on this radio station? I talked to them. Why am I not on this newspaper? Why am I not on that TV? Why did I not get onto that blog per se? And I'm like, yeah, okay. You really make yourself so small, you really want to disappear, but at the same time, you can't disappear, right? But what I liked about my boss at that time is that he said, you have to stand there, even with all the complaints, right? Take them because you're the one who caused the mess. I will help you mop up the mess, but you have to stand your ground because you did this. And the client knows you and sees you and has to continue trusting you. You can be able to recoup this by doing one-on-one interviews thereafter, figure something out, come up with a game plan. But for now, you have to stand your ground and I'll stand next to you. And that's what really gave me courage. The fact that my boss, in as much as he brought me down to shrink, he did not mash me and throw me aside and say, I'm going to fix it. Don't show your face here. He insisted on me showing my face day in, day out in front of that client every single moment. He did not let me shrink into what I wanted to be.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm just nodding because I can relate on so many levels. And Abiodun in the chat, he says, thanks, guys, for offering to be vulnerable, loving the conversation. And it's important because it's not always rosy. And there are two things that jump at me from what you said. It's that thing of you failed, you've made a very, very big mistake, and you just want to hide, you want to crawl. I remember the first year of my career, I was meant to, so I started an internship, and literally about 2 months later, I was put in charge of editorial for this big award show. I had created my plans because I like order. I'm a planner. So I already had my plan of this is what I'm going to do. These are the interviews I'm going to capture because that award show, a lot of celebrities, high profile people were coming from all over Nigeria to the city. So I was going to get so much content, all of it. And then we got there and the plans just unraveled. Let's just say I went to go and take on other people's work that really wasn't my job. I felt like I was being a team player because at the end of the day, we look bad on everybody. But I dropped the ball on what was essentially my task. And then the brief meeting, oh my goodness, I can never forget that woman that I worked with. I will not say her name. She was so cutting with her feedback. I remember going into my hotel room and just shedding tears. And please, I was barely 22 years old. I was also at this point where I was trying to figure out a lot in my life. Is this what I really want to do? I never even knew that there was anything called communication. So to even get that feedback was so cutting. I was so determined that when we get back to Lagos, I was going to put in my resignation letter and not, because I just felt like I'd failed woefully. And there's something I want us to talk about later is also not internalizing your failure. Because in that moment, I really felt like a failure because I was trying to figure out a lot of things. And shout out to my colleagues at the time, Isime and Stanley. They came and they stayed with me. All the ugly tears and everything I was saying were like, no, don't give up. You can do this. But sometimes that's the reality. Sometimes there are tears involved. Sometimes you're like, I can't go forward. And what you said also reminds me of the fact that it's important for us to ask questions, because the higher you go, somehow there's that feeling of I should know, or I should know everything, and you don't
Mhm.
ask questions. So almost like your experience, I had a situation with a client. Remember, I was winging it as I was just going along. I would be asking people, and then this client wanted TV coverage, wanted that. So I reached out to a friend. Oh, I'm trying to get on this TV. The person, did everything. I was like, oh, great, we secured that. They came for the event, and then they reached out to say, okay, by 9:45, we're going to feature your client's event. We're like, great. I called the client, please be tuned on. Rose, 9:45 came. Do you know that they did feature the event, but they featured the government official? They did not talk about the name of the event. They did not talk about the CEO who they actually interviewed. It then now looks like this was a government event. I mean, I'll just leave it to you to think about or to imagine what the client really said to me. I felt so bad because I made a big fuss. Make sure you're tuned in 9:45, and it was just horrible. Like, honestly, that experience is one of those things. When I remember it, I'm like, did that really happen? But it did. But let's still go back. And everyone that's watching, please, if these stories are resonating, give a thumbs up, an emoji. Let's know that these stories are resonating. But Rose, I want you to come in terms of you going through the ranks. So you started in journalism, you've honed yourself as a leader, your journey of leadership. Have you experienced career lows as a leader, and how do you take initiative and innovation despite dealing with the low moments and the failures, so that you're not defined by whatever mistakes and failures that you may have made?
Yeah, I mean, somewhere along the way, my reason for getting into communications itself per se was not for communications itself. My vision was to be an author. I was going to be a children's book author. That was my end game, and I thought that communication would be my avenue to get to that goal. But somewhere in getting into the job market, that dream disappeared. Or would I say that dream kind of like took a sit down while the other dreams popped out of nowhere. And I realized I had a gift in being a journalist. I was doing hard news coverage. I was doing this. Um, but something that kept on coming is that every single time in different groups, I would always be asked to lead the team, or I would have to step up to lead the team in doing one thing or another. And my leadership style is not uh, generic. Let me put it that way. My leadership style is very by the fly of my pants, or by the fly of my seat of my pants. I just go with the flow. I don't have one modus operandi in how I do that. Mostly because it's more about how I interact with other people. And like you said, I always try to be the one who knows everything in the room. And that has led me into not so comfortable places, kind of like walking on thorns, per se. And again, I'll talk about another superpower I have, which is innovations. Now, I really do not like it when someone, that's how we do it. That's how we've always done it. And I ask myself, then why were we told to do it differently? Because they asked a group of young people to do it, right? And they didn't put anyone else to lead us except ourselves. So they must be expecting something young and hip. I mean, at that time, I was really young. Was I hip? I'll let you judge by the story itself. But I was part of the young group. And I was thinking that we can have been asked to do this event, this project, the old way. We were asked to do it the hip way because they want to get people who are our age mates, our generation to. So let me see here what story I wanted to share on that particular one. Aha, the anniversary of a company. So the company was obviously not so young. The company was coming to about 50 years old plus. And here we are in our early 20s, mid 20s, and we've been asked to organize the event. What is the old way that we've always done it? A newspaper supplement, right? So go to the biggest newspaper in the country and let's get a 10-page plus supplement. And I'm thinking, no, we're not doing that. We are definitely not going to do that. We're going to do something young and hip and something that has got the brand of Rose Duo on it. And what I decided to do is that we're going to do a year-long event, right? And every single day is going to be something different. We're going to do internal stuff. We're going to do external stuff. We're going to do all this glory, and we're going to be on a party mode day in for the entire year, like a bus, right? And obviously, I had done too much night clubbing, as you can see from the inspiration where this was coming from. And we saw the whole concept, and it was really bought in by a couple of leadership people. And then my boss came and told me, "Are you sure that this is how you should do it?" I was like, "Absolutely. This is how you bring in young blood to the organization, right? And you don't want to do another 50 years with the same old guys, right?" So we started going down the road. And what happened is that some of the other departments, some of the other leadership members started dropping off like flies. They were not supporting. They would not show up for the event, or they would show up for the event and they would not lift a finger. Some of my team members, that the ones that we were expecting to start doing the implementation, were from like the same school of thought of like, if we're not doing it the same old way, this is too much work. We're too tired. We're not being paid enough for this kind of lifestyle. It's too much, right? And so we were already doomed by the time we're doing the second party. And my boss called me aside and said, "We're going to have to salvage this. But the board of directors really loves this idea. So we have to find a way to do it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to find money. We need to hire an agency and a company to help you implement it, because you do not have the resources or the buy-in internally to be able to implement this." So the long and short of it is, instead of doing a whole 1 year campaign, we did something close to about 3 months of a campaign. We still have some residual from that campaign, which is that we did a whole gallery of photographs. We did a podcast. We did a website. We did great storytelling. But my year-long vision was brought down to 3 months, and it was implemented by an agency. Let me just say that I was like, kind of like, phew, because I did not know how I was going to do it. Now that my team members were all like, we're not paid enough for this kind of lifestyle. And I really had to walk for days in and out with my tail between my legs, like my big dream, my big vision. And like I said, I was so hung up on being innovative. I was so hung up on being a leader that I did not bother to get other people to co-create the idea with me. I did not buy in the ideas of the other people in the team who thought differently, kind of like doing a mixed mesh of something, as opposed to I had to have my way. And that was one of my leadership burning moments, where I realized that I need to step away from this pride, this hubris that I have of I want to shine and I want to be remembered for this awesome thing. So much so that I had destroyed other people's dreams and visions. And therefore, they were not going to help me to realize my own.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It was really
Like,
sad.
I know it's funny, because in the moments these things are sad, it's not funny, but if you reflect and you take away the lessons, it helps you to be a better person. That's actually what I've realized about failure. And I guess that's also, I don't like to fail, but I'm not afraid of failing. I'm not afraid of failure. And something that you had said before is owning your mistakes. I think it's very, very, very important. Don't try to throw another person under the bus. Don't try to cover up your mistake, because what then happens is you're digging a deeper hole. But taking that ownership, I think, is so important. I want to take a few comments. I love the comment section. It's interesting. So Inonge says, you have moved past a crushing moment in your career when you can speak about it humorously. I totally agree. And then Hamdia says, I equally don't like the usual way. It's usually quite boring. Fake it till you make it is not always a good strategy. Totally agree. And Janet has touched on something that I would like us to talk about, Rose. And it's this thing about career gaps, or you're really putting the effort. And there's something she said, that effort alone is not always, it's not everything, right? You work hard, you're putting the effort, you're doing what you know how to do best, but you're not getting, either it's the promotion, or either it's the maybe it's a new role, or even the recognition. And I felt like that in my career. I say that 2020 to 2023, I was in a wilderness season in my career. So I'd gone to do a master's at IE Business School in Madrid. And that master's was really good, because remember, I'd been winging it before 2020. That master's really gave me a deeper understanding of the work we do as communicators, gave me language to a lot of things that I didn't even know how to express. And so I felt like, great, I have the experience. Now I have the paper qualification because I studied law. I just expected that once I come back to Lagos, Nigeria, I'll be the hottest thing since sliced bread. Clients will be lined up. I'm getting all these roles, charging all these bills. Rose, it was so silent. I was putting in proposals. The rejections were many. I remember applying for some speechwriter role at the WTO, rejection. It was so bad. And you know that you're good. You're putting in the effort. You can be really frustrated. Have you experienced that in your career and how have you dealt with it?
Well, I have had so many droughts in my career. I call them droughts because those were the defining moments where I had to make critical decisions. Now, in my younger days, I was very fortunate to have both my parents still with me. And I remember the first time that I had a career drought. And my mother's proposal was, let's go do an MBA. MBAs were all the rage. I think they still are. By that time, they were even hotter cupcake. And I was like, I don't have the money for that, and I don't have the time for it either. She's like, well, that's the only thing that we can support you to do. So let's do a master. So I went to the university and I applied for the master's degree. A few weeks later, they accepted. I was like, they would take anybody, these people. Anyway, so I went to the university, and at the same time, I was still applying for jobs. And I kid you not, it was really trying. I was trying every which way to be noticed by the companies. I would print my CV on bright pink paper just so it can stand out in front of other people's resumes. I had four versions of a CV. One was a photographer, because I love photography and I thought I could sell myself as a photographer. The other one was a documentary filmmaker. The other one was a writer. The other one was a journalist. I was like splitting hairs in terms of what are my skill sets? How can I sell myself? And yes, it was so silent. It was so silent. But one thing that really stood up for me in that particular time, especially because I was young, was my network of people that I studied with. And you meet people left, right, center, either from church or on the street. They say, Rose, what are you up to? Well, I'm looking for a job. Oh, right. We're looking for someone who can be able to do X, Y, Z. Are you able to do that? Give me your CV, come over and drop your CV at the reception. And that's how I got my way into the agency business. The second round, Delola, is I did exactly just like you. I went to the university. I forget, I dropped out of the MBA, by the way. I dropped out. I broke my mother's heart. And so she told me, my next master's is going to be on you. So fast forward to about 10 years later, I am at the end of agency work. I am now the regional director of PR and events for the agency for the entire of East Africa. And I'm thinking, there's no way up, right? The person who's above me has solidified themselves and they are not retiring or nothing is happening to them. You're not going to go higher than this. And I'm thinking, I am too ambitious to stay where I am. That's actually one of my best powers. I am ambitious. But the ambition also comes with a lot of sacrifice because you're in and out of companies, you're in and out of sectors. So I went to university and I went to US to do my master's in public policy and strategic communications. Now that's a master that I really wanted to do, not the MBA. And this particular time, remember my parents told me, now you're on your own. You're going to have to pay for yourself because you've been working for all these years anyway. And I hadn't really saved that kind of money yet. So there I am in the US and still applying for jobs. And I managed to get myself into the NGO sector. That's when I got into this sector. And I haven't looked back since. So it got me through my master's degree and it got me deeper and deeper into public health, into environmental studies, into science. And I've never looked back from it. But every single time that you come to a point where you outgrow yourself, you outgrow your ambition, you have fulfilled what you wanted in that role, in that company. And you have to ask yourself, where can I go to next? What do I do next? And you will apply for very many jobs. And out of the 1,000 applications you do, you will probably be called for less than 10% of those interviews. Out of those 10% of the interviews, there's a likelihood that none of them will give you an offer, or that one of them will. If the case is the former, then you go again to another 1,000 applications and you go down to the 10%, and until you finally find your cycle. But out of every successful person, what I want to make sure that we share in this particular call, Adeomi, is that you will try, you will feel like a failure, but you have to keep on trying. It's the person who gets the job is the one who applied, right? Even though they called you for the interview and there were other people who they had preferred, still go for it. Give it your 100%. You never know where it's going to drop or where the pen is going to drop. Most of the companies that have always employed me are not companies where I knew anybody. It's not companies where I even knew anyone in the sector. And I'm a very big believer in faith. I'm a Christian. So I've always gotten down on my knees and said, if it's mine, it's mine. If it's not mine, I'm still going to give it my 100% so that I don't get it when I've given it my best, not going in half baked. So my years of drought have been quite a number. But because I've been able to survive 1, 2, 3 years of droughts, I am able to save, and when the next one comes, even this one, I can make it. If I made it through all those ones that are behind me, whatever lies ahead of me doesn't even know what I'm made of. I am made of so much
I
more.
love it. I love it. There's so much we can say here, Rose. You know, I was telling you that 1 hour, I don't think it will be enough, but I really wanted us to have this conversation because it's a real thing. And Abike, Janet, we see you. I think that, and there's something Guten wrote that I really like. He said, seasons of drought birth great harvest. They can be very frustrating. I think that it's very, very important for you to distinguish you as a person from you as a professional. That you didn't get a job does not mean that you are not good enough. It does not mean that you are a failure. And we
Yeah.
must, because the society that we live in, we carry our titles on our head. Oh, I am the global comms, da, da, da. If you lose that title, it then becomes, who am I? If that place where you find validation, where it's like, oh, my identity is from this thing, then it's difficult for you to separate it. So you need to ascertain, who is Ade doing as a person? And like Rose, I'm a person of faith. Who is Ade doing as God's child? And who is Ade doing as a communications professional? If I'm going through a season of droughts or rejections, does not mean that Ade doing as a human being, as a child of God, is a failure. I keep praying, and I know that as I continue on my journey, the things that are mine, it will come to me. But another thing that I've realized is, how do you make the most of that season of rejection and drought? Because sometimes we can be so in despair that you don't realize that. I like to believe that there are blessings all around. Are you giving yourself to volunteering? Sometimes it may be that maybe God is leading you to start something new. Some of us were so fixated on, oh, I must work with Coca-Cola. I must work with. Meanwhile, there is an NGO right beside you that if you just even start volunteering, start offering them your service, not only would you have a sense of you're doing something, you don't know what door is going to open for you from that. So I think that we need to be able to use those seasons very, very wisely. How are you improving yourself? How are you going out, for example? So even in my wilderness seasons, I was going for conferences, having conversations with people. And to also wrap this up is, ladies and gentlemen, you have to have your affirmations, especially on those low moments. What do you say about yourself? I can see some people posting about imposter syndrome. I have my friends, they will tell me, what are they doing? You can do this. No, comes queen of Africa. I mean, they gas me up, but trust me, there are moments that I need that gassing up, because sometimes you're just paralyzed with fear. So you have to be able to think in that way. So how do you use that moment, turn it around for good? The rejections. I personally, so I had a friend that was looking for a job a while back, and she's like, "Oh, what are they doing? I've received 150 rejections." I'm like, "Why are you doing that to yourself?" That I don't count. I just move on. Like, you process it and move on. But I think if you're able to take it and know that good will come out of it, it helps you stay in the right mental space and also be in a community of people where you can also be encouraged. So that's something that I really, really want people to take out of this. There's so much to talk about, but I want to remember to bring our special guest on. So let me invite Dorcas. Dorcas is Rosie's mentee from our recently concluded Comms Mentorship program at the Comms Avenue. Dorcas, if you're here, let us know. And she's just going to be sharing. She's also an early years professional. So, Dorcas, what is your perception? So, you've heard all of these stories, some of them are not new, but what is your perception about failure? What is your perception? Do you freeze when you fail? Do you feel like, oh my God, I want to dig into a hole? What is your perception from being a young professional? It would be great for us to hear.
Okay, good morning from my side, and I'm really grateful to be on this platform, and also for having Rose as my mentor. She has been very wonderful over the past weeks, and she has shared a lot with me. I have learned and unlearned a lot, and so for me, um, one thing I have experienced in my career, and also as being a young person in the communications um, professional was just jumping into or walking into a role without fully understand what I was putting myself into. So I was on this fellowship, and I was sent, or should I say, deployed to an organization to intern. And when I got there,
Oh, Dorcas is frozen. I think it's her network. I really wanted
I,
to hear that story.
I
Okay.
was told, yes, I chose there.
Okay. We can hear you now.
Because,
We stopped at you got an internship.
can you? Oh, yes. So I went to the organization, and I didn't fully understand what I was actually doing there. And I had the passion, but then I honestly didn't know what the whole communication was all about. And the truth is that I wasn't trained professionally as a comms person. I was figuring things out by myself. And because of the little time I had, I just jumped into it. So it didn't take long, and the um, failures, or should I say, the gaps start jumping in. I was so overwhelmed, opened. They were teaching me and dragging me along. And so I felt like I was catching up every single day. But then, how did I actually navigate through this? I stopped pretending that I knew everything. And someone mentioned in the comment section that fake it till you make it isn't a good strategy. And it is very true. If you don't know it, you don't know it. And it's okay to come out and just be plain with yourself and be honest with yourself that I don't know what I'm doing, so that people who are actually there, or people who are experts in it, can take you along and show you the way. And so I started reading a lot. I started reading past communication strategies, what are the things they've been doing, proposals, designs, and my team was also helpful. So that failure taught me that, when you have the passion and you don't actually prepare for it, it can land you into a ditch that you struggle to come out of. And so it's always, good to prepare yourself adequately, learn a lot about the organization, because you can't separate communication from the objectives of the organization. This is something I learned from my mentor during the communications the program. You can't separate you can't separate communication from an organization or the objectives of the organization. So I've really learned a lot. I have brought myself out of the shame. I made them understand that I haven't done this before. This is a new thing that I'm coming into. And now I never have to walk into a space without doing my homework. I've learned that as a young person, we may not have the experience, but um, we can make up for the gaps with, effort and then humility. And so I have really learned a lot from my mentor Rose, and for Adedoyin and her team for organizing this wonderful platform for young people like us who are still struggling and who are navigating our way through the communications journey. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate this. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dorcas. That was really, really good. I think that there were a lot of things that you've shared that I really, really liked, right? I really like the fact that, she was talking about shame, not feeling shame. Because I feel like sometimes that burden of, oh, shame where people expect you to be. And I remember when I had to shut down my agency, and when I shut down my agency, we're 3 years into it, and I was already like working with all these high profile clients, doing all of these great stuff. And I said to my mentor at the time, what am I going to tell people that I'm doing? What am I going to say when they ask me? And she said something that has stuck with me today. She's like, Adedoyin, you don't owe anybody any explanation for your career journey. You're in a season of transition. There's a lot you don't know. It is okay to say, I do not know. It is okay to say, I am just spending time with God at this moment. It is okay, but not to try to put things together because you want to impress people or because you want to feel ashamed. So that's something that even every time I'm going through like a low or uncertain phase in my career, I remember I really don't owe people, oh, I'm doing this grand thing. Oh, I think my biggest thing was, what will I write on my LinkedIn as my title? I'm not doing anything. But that pressure to show up, and sometimes LinkedIn, you're coming on LinkedIn, Rose, I don't know if you feel that sometimes. Oh, happy to announce, please, when you're like, oh, what's happening in my life, you know? But yeah, those are some things that, you know, came to mind as I was listening to her. But I want to take questions. Rose, do you want to chip in before we go into Q&A?
For that one as well, I'm happy to announce. I'm happy to announce. It's really good to celebrate those moments. And there are those individuals who do deserve or do really need to be able to say or share that information. There are others, like myself, when I transition from one place to another or one position to another, I don't make those announcements. And it's really most about how I see myself. What I've really learned about the kind of people I'm mixing with right now is when you're not in the office, when you're not on the job, don't talk about the job. When you go for a party, and especially in Germany, which was really for me, I was like, then what do we talk about when we go to a party? It's like, no, let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about how the kids are doing. Let's talk about this thing that's happening with, talk about anything, but no one wants to talk about work. They're very clear about demarcating working time and it interfering with your personal time and your achievement. Introduce yourself as Adedoyin. That's it. What do you do? Oh, I work in this company. That's what I do, right? And then you quickly follow through with something else and say, oh, what about this? I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about this party that's going to be happening down the streets and so on. And it's really important to try and do those a lot more, because talking about work in your family spaces and in your private time means now you're only defined with that company and with that job. When you retire, when you resign or leave that organization or that business, then you don't have an identity.
I agree. And that also speaks about having other interests outside of work that you are doing. So some of you maybe you need to go and take, you know, culinary classes. I'm going to sign up for culinary classes. I just need to find the time in my schedule because I really love food, but I found the school is just the time. So take swimming lessons, find interests outside of work because again, that's what makes you a well-rounded professional. I know communications is an always on job, but you see the truth is that we were not built or wired to be always on. So you need to be able to take time off, do things for yourself outside of work. And remember, don't derive your identity from your role or your job. I cannot count the number of times, even let's take this USAID cuts. The people that just felt like, who am I outside of this? I'm like, you are you. You existed before this, and you will continue to exist. It's such an amazing thing. But please, we really should not tie our identity to work. I want to take a question from Mary. Mary says, what about having all the qualification and experience, and you still feel quite like an imposter, and you're already in a dry season? I will share my own perspective, and Rose, you can share as well. The truth about imposter syndrome is you will always have those voices, right? Those moments of doubt. And it's now compounded when you're in a dry season. Oh, am I this or am I that? You have all of the qualifications. There are things about life and our career journey that I've learned that I cannot explain. I cannot explain how I finished with a master's degree. I had all the experiences, but I was not getting the brief. It was just, sometimes you have those moments. It's a phase. But I've also realized that there's usually an end date to some of those things. And so like the Bible says, encourage myself in the Lord. So which is why I was saying the people you surround yourself with is very, very, very important. Where and how do you derive your sense of purpose from? Because again, you have to remove yourself from that situation because it can be very debilitating. So how do I make sure that, and I'll be very honest with you, you know, my friends are on this call, moments that I wailed, not cried though, wailed on the phone, what's going on with my life? Look at this and that. And they allow me to cry because I don't feel they need to be a strong girl around them. I cry, I break down, I don't know what's happening, but they help me to stand up and keep it moving. I volunteer my time. I look for causes, which is why I'm saying find interest outside of your work, things that give me a sense of purpose, things that are tied to what I believe God is asking me to do. And then I keep pushing. But then how I speak about myself is very, very important. I never call myself a failure. I never, personalize whatever it is that I'm feeling. I speak life. I speak light. Or they know you are exceptional. You are great. You are All of those things, even if I want a promotion, you are rising in your career, you are light, you are excelling every single day. I literally have a voice note of affirmations because you have to control what you say about yourself. I'm a firm believer in that. And then as you go along, it's just to also believe that there's a yes somewhere. I'm so convinced about that. I may have gotten so many no's. I mean, just even as an example, if you go to my LinkedIn DM, starting the Comms Avenue, we had so many people that told us no's. But it was discouraging, but we kept going. And a number of people have given us yeses. So I hope that encourages you, Mary. But Rose, do you have any thoughts for that question?
Yeah, I learned this long ago from actually the men in my life and the men who've been my supervisors, my bosses, and my colleagues. Men have a very unique way of looking at life in general and work in general. And one of them actually told me, be kind to yourself because the world is not going to be. The world is not going to be kind to you. The only person who can be kind to you is you. Even more than your mother can be kind to you, you need to take care of yourself. So be very kind and gentle with how you speak to yourself, how you speak of yourself, because others are already, if you think you're a failure, there's someone somewhere who is adding even bigger words to exactly who you are. So be kind with yourself. Don't call yourself a failure. Just say this way. And this is where I learned from men is that men say, oh, I'm going through a challenging time. I am just pushing on, right? I am doing it, I'm making it, I'm just struggling along, right? But they never say that they are failing or that they have just gotten down to something like that. They just say, I am pushing on. I'm struggling, but I'm making it, right? They never call themselves downwards. So that's another way of looking at yourself. And I like the way Adedoyin find with you. Look at places where you can be able to volunteer. For example, there's an outfit that I actually work with, which is the Catholic Church, and we're looking for volunteers. So I'll post it right after this call. We're looking for volunteers in the area of digital and so on. None of these things have money in them. But if you have time, that's actually what you have. You have time, and you can use that time to do something. In one of my drought areas, and I recall this because I did not have the money, and therefore anything that I wanted to do to fill in that gap time required me to have money. I didn't even have money to pay for my internet connection or even to go to a cyber cafe and so on. So I really relied on the kindness of my friends and my family to go and sit at their house and use their Wi-Fi, to use someone else's computer or laptop. But something happened in my family at that time, and I found myself, even when I felt that I had absolutely nothing to give, I had time and I had kindness. So my father fell very ill, and so did my mother at the same time. It was quite challenging for them. And at that time, I was the one who was not fully employed. So I had, those 8 hours that you get to go to an office, I had those hours free, right? So I put myself to work to become mom and dad's chauffeur to and from the doctor's appointments. And I was all over their business, day in, day out. Have you eaten? Have you taken your medicine? Have you done this? Call your sister, call your daughter, call your son, just being a nuisance in the household, but actually just being the one where my siblings would count on and say, did you go to dad's appointment? What did the doctor say? And, just being that secretary to the family. And I was so busy doing that. My sisters and brothers were able to provide the fuel for the car to make sure that we went to the appointments, they paid for the medication for the parents, and I got to stay with my parents within that season. So even when I had no money to offer my family, I had my time to offer, right? Even when I had nothing that I felt that made me feel that I was worthy, what I did for my family at that time, they said, and I remember my sister telling me that no one at that time could have been able to do that for mom and dad. But thank goodness that you are available. And I keep thinking that the reason I didn't have a job at that time was because there I was needed for this thing. And absolutely nowhere was I going to go and ask my boss for leave to take care of my parents. Nobody does that in an Africa setting. You even work harder when your parents are unwell, right? So even when you're down and out and you have absolutely nothing, or you think you have nothing to give, remember you still have time. So how you spend that time, who you give it to, that's your choice.
Wow. So many
Can we
So
take
many
some more questions
soundbites,
and
so many
comments?
comments, and this conversation. I mean, there's so much we can say because there's so many seasons in your life as a person. There's high seasons, there are low seasons. I just finished writing my latest book, which will be out in July, and even just writing the book, I realized that even the low seasons, the wilderness seasons, has shaped me to where I am today. I think it was Guteng in the chat. I was talking about learning in every season. What am I learning? What skills am I gaining? How am I contributing? I mean, and Rose, I've been there. I mean, 2020, I could not afford to relax my hair high or pay data. I felt like what's happening in my life. Couldn't pay my bills, didn't have the money. But you see, there's much more to what you can give than just the money. Sometimes it's your time. It's you even being there, being present from people. And so if you again don't put your value to how much you earn, because that's also another thing, or how much you're able to make, it helps you to take the blessings of that season. There's always good, I believe, in the seasons. So we have a few minutes more. There's so many questions. Mienda is saying she's graduated, or is this a he? I think it's a he. Graduated with BA in Integrated Organizational Communication. It's been in dry season for 7 years. Wow, that's a long one. How do you sell yourself to score well in interviews? Rose, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, everything always goes back to two things. One, what is the job description? What are they asking for? What are the skills and the talents and experience that they're asking for? Just kind of like pull those out from the job description. Then on the other side, look at what do you have to offer? What are you very good at? Because even as a communicator, Adodoyin, you and I are not good at everything communication. Like I said earlier, I see myself as a photographer and as a broadcast journalist, as I'm very good at the spoken word and radio, but I'm not good at all the spectrums of communication. So I sell myself primarily as that. And I say, yes, I can do all of these other things, but my level of being 100% out of 100 is much less. But if you give me photography, 10 out of 10, you'll get the best kind of photos out of that. So look at what skill sets do you have? What experience do you have? What do you bring to the table? And if there's a match set, out of every match set that you have, produce a story. Because remember, you're a communicator. You sell yourself through storytelling. And your style of storytelling is very different from compared to others. Like I said, I'm a radio person. Another person is a visual person. Another one is a photography or will do some animation. How do you sell that skill and say, well, you're looking for someone who can be able to do strategy. I'm very good at strategy, and this is my story about how I delivered strategy for this company XYZ. Build it into a narrative, sell it within that style. But sometimes you'll find that the job description is not necessarily aligned to what you have to offer. And it might be you're jumping higher than what you currently are. And again, now that's a place where you need a mentor. And again, I will recommend the mentorship circle for very many reasons. We have been matched up with people who, even in myself, Dorcas has really given me a gift of being able to look at my career and look at myself as someone who's worthy to be able to share my story and my experience with somebody else. I mean, at this point in my career, I didn't think I had anything to give. I felt I still had so much more to learn along the way. And that's true, I do have more to learn. But like I said earlier, even when you're at zero, you still have something to give. So when you're about to jump a little bit higher, look for a mentor, look for some of your former bosses and have a chat with them. Tell them, have a look at this job description. Do you really think I can make this? And they can walk with you that journey of trying to make that application happen. Simulate some interviews with them. Look for a coach if you have money to be able to pay for a coach. But a mentor is actually the best way to go, because a mentor is someone who knows you, is someone who will take the time to invest in you in terms of walking that journey to that direction.
Thank you so much, Rose. And we're coming towards the end. So many questions. But before I even start talking, I want to talk about the Comms Mentorship Conference, which is coming in July. But before I do that, I wanted to touch on this question that I think it's Blessing, yes, I found it, has asked about, work-life balance being a myth. And, what does that say to a young lady who wants to navigate ambition without losing themselves? I think that the things that we've said are applicable. It's just realizing that there's so many parts to you. There's you as the person in the corporate world. There's you as a daughter, as a child, or if you are married, as a mother, as a wife, and you as just a person. And understanding that sometimes one will have more weight than the other. Trying to balance all the balls all at once, in the reality of it, can be very, very tasking, because again, in life, there are seasons. There are times where you have more free time. For example, between now and August, my family time is very lean because I have a lot on my plate. I mean, I still try to deliberately, for example, weekends, make sure I'm touching base with my family members and all, but they know that, oh, there's a lot going on. So you have to understand that, okay, what is this ambition? What season of my life am I in? And for women, especially like when you have a child, if you have those ambitions, you then have to ask yourself, do I want to be present for my child, or do I want to focus on this ambition? I can't tell you what your answer should be, but you have to be realistic, because that thing about women can do it all. You can do everything, but you cannot do it all at once. So it's to say, in this season, I'm going to prioritize X. In this season, my focus is, so for me this year, my focus has been on my professional development. So I've been taking certifications, I've been enrolling for courses, because that is my focus. Not that I'm not doing other things, but I've been very, very focused on that, very focused on building the comms mentorship platform. So it's good to be ambitious. I believe in ambition, but be realistic about your ambition in the context of the things that are important to you. If family is important to you, if friendship, if just being able to enjoy life is important to you, then there's some sort of balance that you will need to put to that. Some people are just work 24/7. They don't really care about other things. If that's you, that's okay. But just make sure that what's important to you, you focus on that. And for me, God is the most important thing. So I'm very sensitive to, what am I supposed to be doing in this season of my life? And am I creating enough time to be able to focus on it? So that's that one. Rose, I want you to take this question. This is the last question, because we actually have to go. And it says, she's seen many communicators unable to rise after taking a direct hit on their sense of self, being labeled as a total failure. So what is the single greatest way to restore faith in one's ability in the face of scathing remarks about your work and the things that you do?
It's to go to a safe place. You need to create a safe place for yourself. For me, my safe place has always been inside a book. I love to read. I love to also write, but I find my safety in just going to pick a book that I haven't read, a different genre, and hiding in that for the duration of that time. I carry that book around with me. You'll find me in a bus with it. I'll be reading it even in my coffee break and so on. But you need to find a safe place. You need to create your sanctuary, right? At one point in my life at Adedoyin, my sanctuary was actually taking a walk. I would actually leave the office, and this was when I was working in the agency, because the agency is super fast, right? It's super fast. They're always on the ball. I would actually finish a whole day without eating. I mean, as you know, when you're running your own agency, it's actually kind of like breakneck as well. So what I would do is I would actually leave at lunchtime when I was able to, and just take a walk around the entire neighborhood. I would see even people's houses and say, I dream of living there one day. Just walk, 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 and the entire hour, and then go back to the office and continue. That's how I survived. Nowadays, I read a book. I do take a short walk, but not as long as I used to. But you need to create a sanctuary. You need to create a routine in terms of how do you ground yourself, right? Bring yourself down to a place where you feel calm, safe, and collected. And especially because the noises are in your head, they're nowhere else. They're inside here. And that's where the battle is. The battle is inside here. So you can go to people who are going to talk to you and do all this loud music and so on. Those noises will just keep quiet for a little bit. And once the noise goes off, they will come back on. So you need to find a place where you have your sanctuary, you manage those noises and tell them, you need to keep quiet, because right now I am taking control. Right? I am going to build myself back up stronger and safer. And just like Adedoyin, you said, if I need to cry, I have cried. If I need to go under the bed covers and just cover myself and imagine that the world is completely black, I have done that. Gone through my process and then said, I need to release all these emotions, because when I get out of here, I am really going to beat up anything else that fights me down. I am going to build myself up so much stronger that no one will believe that it was the same person.
I love it. And honestly, that's essentially what I do. Like, there has to be a fight and a resolve in you. So if you take the moments that you failed, you have to unpack it. That's something that I must always emphasize. Why did I fail? Why did I make a mistake? What happened? What are the lessons? Because if you don't process it and you don't get the lessons, the possibility of recycling it will be over. Now, once I have done that and I have cried and I'm ready to keep it moving, look, I shut out the voices. I'm very, very deliberate about the voices I listen to. If you come, even my brother knows, my brother can't say certain things around me because I would just flip it. I really believe in the power of words. So you really have to curate your space. So if someone is making you feel like, oh, you're a failure because I will tell the person, I'm not a failure. I made a mistake on that. I learned it, and I'm going to continue to excel in my role. Sometimes I say it so many times that person shuts up. So you have to be in control. There has to be a fight and a resilience, because you know that you are competent. Because you're competent and you made a mistake, that mistake doesn't define you. And so you have to be able to communicate it and curate the voices that you will listen to. And we've said before, have a community of people that are affirming you, even if it's just one friend, but don't allow anybody to have the final say of negative word around you. That I don't subscribe to that. All right. Thank you all so much. We have 2 minutes. I have to talk about the Comms Mentorship Conference, which is happening on Saturday, 26th July. And this session has been a teaser of what to expect during the conference. We're just bringing experts to talk about, don't even talk about anything. They're literally just answering your career questions from their own lived professional experiences, authentically, openly, vulnerably. All of those questions come with it. We're going to have it on the 26th of July. It's going to be in person in Lagos, Nigeria, and it will also be streamed live on YouTube, and it starts at 9:30 a.m. West African time. So I think Dinchi has posted the link, but you can put it again. Please make sure you register, you sign up, and come with your questions, real, honest questions. We really want to be able to answer some of these things, because you would agree, you're not going to find some of these things in a textbook. People don't really talk about it, but they are a real and an essential part of your career journey. And so that's what we want to do on Saturday, 26th of July. I hope to see as many of you there as possible. So please sign up. Yes, Mienda, you can attend online, and the link will be shared again in the chat. But Rose, in less than 1 minute, what is your final word? We've talked about failure, rejection, imposter syndrome. What do you want people to remember from this conversation?
That your life story belongs to you. You own your story. You own your failures. You own your successes. Even though in the successes you may be celebrating with so many people, but remember, the journey is yours. Be kind to yourself. And the successes will always be so loud and so big that you might even yourself, even other people will forget your challenging moments. But own your story. Write your story, tell your story. Don't let other people tell of your failures and your successes. Be the author of your life.
Wow, so powerful. Thank you so much. Before I share my own final words, yes, Miriam and everyone that's asking, you can watch the replay on the Comms Avenues LinkedIn or my YouTube channel. So Damilola Odinchi, you can put a link to my YouTube channel because it's also streaming live there. You can go and watch it. My final words for you: failure is not the end of the world. Everybody fails, but once you fail, pick yourself up and keep moving, because there is more that you will do. There is more that you will achieve. There's greater heights for you to get to. One down or low moment does not define who you are as a person. So don't internalize those failures, silence the negative voices, and keep it moving till you reach that destination that you want to get to. Amen. I feel like I've preached a message here. Thank you so much. I know preaching, but honestly, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you for being so engaged from the beginning right till the end. Debbie is asking about the volunteer link. So maybe Rose, you can put it in the chat section on YouTube once we're done, because the channel.
I will do that.
And yeah, please feel free to reach out to the Comms Mentorship Circle. You can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, if you still have questions. And Dinchi has also posted the link to the Substack. Every Thursday, West African time, I'm there in the chat by 7 p.m. West African time, answering questions. So feel free. Again, no judgment zone, here to answer as openly, as honestly as possible, because we really want you to have all the information, all the support, all the clarity and guidance that you need to build a successful and purposeful career in communications. Rose, thank you so much for doing this with me. I am glad that we were able to do this. Thank you for the stories. Sending you lots of love from this way. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.